Hello, I'm Paul Watson. I am the developer of the Alien RPG system for Foundry VTT. And what we want to show you today is a preview of the beta version of the Alien RPG starter set, which I'm working with Free League to produce for Foundry. Very quickly, it is a beta, so things might change in the future. And secondly, right now there is not a release date. We're still working on it, and we want to put out the best possible product we can. So we'd rather make sure it was right than put out something that people don't like. And I'm joined by Thomas,
Howdy.
who will hopefully introduce himself.
Yeah, so I'm Thomas, and I'm going to be sitting with Paul while we go through this, and more importantly, perhaps I'm running a demo of Chariot of the Gods using the beta with Paul and a couple of mates starting tonight/tomorrow, depending on what time zone you're in.
In the UK, it's going to be 19:30 GMT on Sunday, and in Australia, which is where
It's going to
Thomas is.
be 30 a.m.
So yes, we'll get a notification out about that. So where to start? Very quickly, let me talk about the base system. So the assumption here is that people have got some experience of Foundry VTT, and you understand the basic mechanisms of how it works. The base Alien system is free to download once you've purchased Foundry, and it is the unofficial version. Hopefully that might change, but at the moment it is labelled the unofficial version. So in the base system, just a few things to go over, which might be news to some people. So there are, in the configuration settings under system settings, there are a few things that might be useful to people that I've built in. Firstly is the ability to switch the mouse keys. So in the system, right does a roll click, and if you left right mouse, and if you left click the mouse, it gives a pop-up, and you can put modifiers into the dice rolls. Some people like it the other way round, so there's a switch in here, which if you check this box, it will flip those around. Secondly, when I created the system, I wanted it to look like the screens that you saw in the movies. So I did a colour combination I thought was lovely, but after a little while, some people didn't like it. So there's this configuration setting, and it's in here, and it's also on the config game settings bar. But if you click on this, you get a drop down. Now the drop downs won't show, unfortunately, because of the recording. But in here, you can change the font, and you can change the colour that the character sheets, creature sheets, and some of the chat messages show. All you do is you change it in here, and I don't know whether that won't show. Okay, you change the colour, hit submit, it refreshes, and it's per person, it's not system wide. So if you've got a user that doesn't like the font, for instance, and wants something a bit more clearer, they can just go in and change it themselves. Or if they want to change it from green to blue or yellow or whatever, they can. And if you get really confused, you hit the reset button and it resets it back to the default. Additionally, in the system, and there's lots of things here which I'll get to in a little while, if you go to the journals, there are mother instructions, and this is just a journal that gives you it's a basic guide to how to use the system, how the roles work, what the sheet's for, how to use the sheets, skills, just run through that, and a little bit about macros. I'll mention this now. In Foundry at the moment, it's when you roll for initiative, you can only roll initiative for a token once. So what a good friend of mine found was if you install the furnace module and have advanced macros set, you can actually set a macro up and do 2 initiative rolls, which obviously you need to do for some creatures. And I'll show you that a little bit later, but you have to do this manually. I've not included it in the system because I don't want to force people to use the furnace, which I would advise anyway because it's a great add-on. And I've probably skipped ahead on my script. So that's the basic notes, and they're also in German. And I thank Frank for that. He did that for me. And if anyone would like to do them in a different language, that would be good. A quick word about add-ons. No, I have skipped ahead. I'll talk about macros. The other thing.
So, Paul, just before you move on,
yep.
So you want to talk about what you were thinking when you put it together. So you can run it without modules, right? So the whole thing is built so that you don't need to install any modules. I mean, the modules add a lot of value, but if you needed to, you could just go with the base system, correct?
Yes, the core system just comes with, well, the core system comes with very little. The only thing you get with the core system is one table. Freely very kindly allowed me to replicate the panic table because it's embedded and built into the system. So that comes with it. The only other thing that comes with it is the items, which are skill stunt items. Other than that, there's very little, and you have to build it all yourself.
I guess I was actually referring to the add-on modules. So Dice So Nice.
Oh, yes. So, yes, my favourites, you don't have to have any of them. So my suggested modules are Dice So Nice, the Furnace for those macros, Cursor Hider, which is a very convenient tool. It means you don't see the other person's cursors flying around, and Pointers and Pings, which is really useful if you want to get a big finger and point at something for people. But none of them are completely necessary. The system runs perfectly without modules. It detects whether or not you've got Dice So Nice, and if it has, it uses different rolling mechanisms to roll for Dice So Nice. So as a bare bone system, nothing else is needed.
Cool.
Also, one of my sort of design philosophies was I didn't want to create a video game. GMs need to earn their crust, so I've not automated everything. Combat is not automated to a great extent. You still need to add and take away points, hit points and things from people. Some people like that and some people don't. I'm not that good a developer.
You have automated, like the xenomorph rolling.
Yes.
You've embedded, the dice rolling within it, so that if I roll my xenomorph attack, I also get in the pop-up the option of just clicking on a link with embedded in the description of the attack to do any continued, attack. So if I need to roll the base damage, then I can just click on a link inside the attack, though.
Yes, it's not even a link. I'll show you briefly. So if we look at a good old, let's have a stage 5 adult, and so this is the character sheet. The system automatically looks in the folder for monster tables, and it gives a drop down of all the ones that are in there, and the ones that are supplied with the beta version are the abomination attacks, the neomorph attacks, and the bloodburster attacks. Once you've got that set up, all you need to do is push this button, roll attacks, and what will happen, I might have to do this a few times to get one up. So in that case, you can see what has happened was, we've got Dice So Nice running. What has happened is it rolled the attack over here. This is a private GM only roll. I've done that because as a GM, you don't necessarily want to, you might want to add some flavour around what's happened. You also, if it's killed one of your player characters within the first 30 minutes, you might want to fiddle it. Dare I say that? But yes, so
Fudge the roll.
fudge the roll. Yeah, definitely. So yes, in the chat window here, it's come up with the neomorph attacks. The roll using 8 base dice. If you just click on the 8, it will come up. Well, hey, that was good for the players. It come up and there's no successes there. And let's just try again. Now there is a setting in Dice So Nice which we haven't got set here at the moment, where it won't actually show those dice being rolled for inline rolls. Let's see if we did 1 success on that. So the players are doing quite well in this game so far.
Although it's now rolled tail slash 10 dice and it's +2 damage, so they're taking 2 points of damage. It's not great.
Yeah. Well, they've got their armour safe, hopefully.
Right.
But yes, right. It can get a bit annoying. So yes, they're private rolls. Private rolls are different from normal rolls. A normal roll, in the background, there's a picture of a face hugger. We'll probably see some of those a bit later. Probably the other thing worth mentioning, which is a Foundry thing, is around the combat tracker. So the system works so it rolls a 1d10, much like drawing a card when you roll for initiative. The problem, it's not a problem, the thing with Foundry is it always does from the highest to the lowest. So that's one real difference, is you've got 1d10 highest to lowest. Additionally, it does allow duplicates. So sometimes if you get 2 people that roll initiative and they've got the same number, you have to ask both of them or one of them to roll again. There is a macro somebody wrote. I've not tried it myself, or an add-on that does reverse initiative, so it'll actually reverse it, but I've not played with that myself, so I can't really comment on it. I think that's about all I've got to say about the base system. Really, I mean, if you've got Foundry, download it, play with it. Oh, no, I haven't. No, macros, that's what I meant to say. So there are macros that I've built. Yet again, they're in the compendium called Alien. And there is a Games Master dice roller, a player dice roller. Obviously, you need to give them permission to get that. A macro for rolling on creature tables and a macro for rolling on mother tables. They're all currently down the bottom of the screen here. And when we get onto it, I'll show you how they work. Starter set. You install the start. At the moment, there's still some discussion about how you're going to purchase the starter set via license or who from or whatever. But basically, you'll get it as it will be a module as far as Foundry is concerned. So you'll go into manage modules, install the module as you know. It will install. That brings in all the compendiums. When you click on one of the compendiums, it will then pop up and ask you if you want to import all of the material. Now, I've not imported all of the material because it can cause performance issues for remote players, but I'll take you through a quick tour of what we have, or I have, or will be imported. So on the scenes, we've got Mother Aids, and what I've done here is these are just basic maps like this, which give you the cover of the book, the timeline, And a challenge I had in developing this was getting these to a size that would scale nicely without causing great performance issues for your players. Because the last thing you want to do is load something on your system and then the players all complain because it takes 2 minutes for it to load on theirs. So I've had to look at the resolution of some of these things, and the biggest disappointment, well, when I say a disappointment, Stars of Middle Earth is a massive, beautiful map, but unfortunately it is huge as an ordinary file. So I did the best I could with that. The other thing I've included is a Theatre of the Mind map. Now, this is a concept based on a concept by Pyram King, who's done a lot of good stuff for Foundry and has some really great ideas. And the idea is that when you get to one of those situations in your game where you're not in a battle map or anything, you're just sitting around having a discussion or something like that, you have one of these, which is basically a Theatre of the Mind map. Now, the way it works, just bring them in, zoom in a bit. The way it works is, anyone that knows Foundry, there's an invisible wall along there. So the players can't move their characters into this top section. The GM's got free agency around here, so he can move anything around. The advantage of this is, if the players need to open their character sheet, they can. So if you say, let's say they're trying to persuade one of your non-player characters to do something, you can say, oh, go on then, roll, manipulation or whatever the relevant skill is, and that can all be done from here. So it's like if you will, the theatre of the meeting room, as I've put it here, is more like what you do between scenes when you're not getting killed by aliens, which in my experience is most of the time. And you've had a play.
I guess the other use of it is, and like the guys from Effect talk about this a lot, so we'll give them their moment. If they prefer Theatre of the Mind over big maps and moving icons around, then you can run the whole thing through the Theatre of the Mind view, right? And just flip up the map using, as player handouts effectively. And they could run the screen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not everyone likes charging around, moving counters, and running around battle maps. So, yeah, definitely, you can run it as Theatre of the Mind. And as I say, Pyram King uses it a lot in his campaigns, and he's got some really good examples. He creates a merchant in D&D on Foundry, and puts the merchant at the top up here, and then the players can have a conversation with the merchant and things. It works. He's very nice, and it gives you a little bit of interest rather than just having a blank screen really, or a picture of a map. And it is quite subtle, but there is some light animation in this map.
Yes, which I'm watching right now. I'm watching it play out.
I tried not to make it too in your face because it can get a bit hypnotic after a little while. Anyway, so Mother Aids, they're just, as I say, general things to get you through. And then for the Chariot of the Gods scenario, spoilers, I've got the cover, because you've got to have, because it is beautiful artwork. And then in here, I'm going to show the one that most people see. So I'm going to show the Montero, because the players see that anyway. So I've got the ship in here as a map, but from a player perspective, and I'm going to switch on walls so people can see, it's got all of the walls and doors, and I've done this with all of the maps that you can see in all of the scenes over here. They've all got walls and doors. So when you get to the point where the players are in this situation and you put a player token on there, I'm running off script here. Thomas will tell me off in a second because I'm running off script. That's what they will only. Oh, I've got to reset file. they will only see what their vision allows them to see. So doors, etc., will weird's going on. Would help if I had the right bit. So that's they get the vision that their character would have, and if you've read the scenario, you probably know why I did that. And if you haven't, don't, because it will spoil it when you play it. But it uses all of the standard vision that Foundry provides, and doors. Everybody likes a good door.
You've loaded up, and I think with the Montero map, though, unlike the Kronos maps, you've set it so the default is they can see everything because it's meant to be their ship and they're meant to know, right?
Not with these maps.
Oh, okay.
Just in case you wanted to do it differently. Obviously, from the Games Master's point of view, if you want to, you can go into the scene and modify. I don't know whether the window will come up. You can modify the scene and say, actually, I don't want fog of war. I want full vision, and then you'll just have the doors. So that is an option that you can put into the system. But for now, that's the way those maps are gonna be delivered.
No.
I've got to say anything else about maps. Going to check my notes. Sorry.
No, you've covered
maps. Thank you. Actors. So these are imported, as I say. Actors. So little sneak peek there. So there are Chariot of the Gods actors, and in there are the creatures, and they're split into the type of creature. And you've got the PCs and the NPCs. And as you saw with John Wilson, they are fully populated with the relevant skill stats, skills, talents, and skill stunts, as you would expect, and that works. And obviously their talents display. I've made a modification to talents actually today to display, to capture that information in rich text so that I can format it better. Their inventories are there, so if they've got things, they can use them. I think in this scenario nobody's got anything, but
well, don't start with, but you can pick up items. You get a list of items in the Montero that you can drop onto your character sheet. In the inventory.
So a quick thing about rolling. So to roll a dice in this game, you click on, let's say you want to do an agility roll. It'll roll the agility and it comes up down here, and hopefully you can see in the background there a face hugger, because that's a public roll. If you wanted to roll with a modification, you left click, and then you get a modifier box come up, and you can say, well, actually, I want you to add a stress dice this time, and then do the roll, and it will roll the agility with the stress dice. Similarly with skills, so if you say roll range, roll mobility, just roll the mobility, and it will roll the relevant dice. Push mechanic in this is handled over in the chat window. It's different in some games. They've got it on the character sheet, but I put it in the chat window. So if I want to push a roll here, you'll notice at the moment his stress is 0. If I push the roll, it will re-roll, add 1 stress dice. His stress goes up by 1, and it will give me the total information for that roll and push, and it's cumulative. So he got 1 success in his first roll. He got another success in his second roll, which, if you notice, there was 5 dice in the second roll, 6 dice in the first, so it didn't re-roll the success from the first. But it gives you the total number of successes, so it's pretty easy to.
And it automatically increments the stress on the character sheet as well, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. So up here, you should see the stress has gone up to 1. Hopefully you can see that. Additionally, around the characters, so you will get to that point where you'll get one of those lovely little face huggers, and it will say roll stress. All the player has to do is click on this thing that says stress, and it will roll stress. Bingo, I've got a nervous twitch straight off the bat. Thanks for that. That comes up here. The other thing the system does is on the general sheet, this panicked comes up and starts flashing. And basically, this is acknowledging the more panic rule. So it's referred to in the rulebook, but you have more panic. So if you roll the same or less on your next stress roll, it will actually increment the stress level you are at by 1. So I had to introduce a thing called stress levels. To clear that, you right click on it, and now his stress level set to 0. But it's his overall stress level, but his stress value still remains at 1. I've got nothing in the system at the moment that will set this stress value to 0, other than putting a 0 in that box or clicking the minus button. That's an improvement for way down the line. I showed you the skill stunts roll down, and I showed you the talents roll down. We've got that done. Items and weapons. So items are all in the compendium, as you would expect, and I'll go into those a little more later. The player just drags it onto the screen, and there are 2 modes. They're either inactive or active. To make something active, the little picture here, you left click on it and it flips to active. To make it inactive, you right click on it. Damage is shown on here. Rounds you can update here, so you can keep track of the rounds on that device. If you want to edit the item, these are context sensitive, so you right click on these and you can edit or delete. So if I do edit, it will allow me to edit that or my version of that weapon. And if you want to shoot it, you just click on that and it will roll the weapon, the skill and the controlling attribute, as you would expect. And once again, you can push. And if there were any stress dice, I'll just add a couple of stress dice just because they're fun. And we'll fire the Magnum again. And it adds all the, hey, I got this. And you can see down here now, because I rolled a face hugger, it says roll for stress. So I do my stress roll. And I've just dropped my gun. They're public rolls because I think everybody likes a good laugh. I didn't really see any reason to make them private.
They should always be public. It's important that everyone has a good laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Except when it's critical roll and it's the you are dead result.
Sure.
That doesn't go down too well.
But less, perhaps more at the GM's discretion of humour.
Yeah.
All right, so creatures.
Creatures, I think I basically did the creatures a little while ago, but we'll just take you through it very quickly. So you've got the health up here. So this shows up as min-max. So the left-hand box is the current health, the right-hand box is the total health. So that should be 6, it's not. The reason for that is, if I drag him onto here and zoom in, if I hover over him, you can see at the bottom, and I'm just going to do that because you can see at the bottom is his health bar is at full. I've added his armor values up here, so if he needed to do an armor save, same as with characters, does a 6-digit. Creatures, some creatures have a different armor value versus fire, so that can be stored in there. And once again, you just click on that and it will roll 3 dice rather than 6. Observation rolls, you've got there. Acid splash. Trust me not to have a creature with acid splash. I'm going to say it's got an acid splash value of 3. So the idea of acid splash is, hurrah! Your character's shot the bejeebers out of this neomorph. The neomorph's got an acid splash of 3. How much damage did you do, Thomas?
5, because I was awesome.
5 points damage. That is awesome. Now, if you recall the rules, it's 5 plus his 3 acid splash,
which is less awesome.
and he got 3 successes, so you got 3 of those back. So you got splashed with acid and 3 successes. So that's I'll let you work that one out. Mobility, speed, and health speak for themselves, and there's notes. And the base set comes with all of the NPCs, all of the creatures, and all of the PCs, all pre-configured, predefined, and pre-iconed.
Okay, so
quickly on to the items. Items in the base system, there is a concept of skill stunts. Now, what this is, I'm going to quickly open the character sheet, is what this little spanner displays. Now, in the default system, it will display whatever is in these. Don't ever delete these things because the system will stop working. But normally, they will say this: no stunts entered, blah, 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 blah. And the idea of this was, I did this so that people could actually put their own text in here that would show up when they clicked on here. In this system, I override these. You still need them, but I override them. And it actually shows the full skill stunt information for whichever skill you click on down the bottom. So, as a reminder for anyone that's not played a lot, if you roll 1 over your 1 success more, you get to choose from one of these stunts for extra effect, or you can just have another point of damage, which most people do because you need to kill them.
Sure, but when you're piloting, you need your skill stunt so you can show off.
Yeah, exactly. The one that always disappointed me was medical aid. There isn't one. The one thing you might need to be able to pull a stunt on, and you can't do it.
No, it's just heal people, stop them from dying.
Yeah. The other thing that comes with the starter set are talents. Now, in the starter set, there's a reduced set of talents. Don't delete these either. These are drag and drop. So if you decide that you want John Wilson to have something more than personal safety, you can give him overkill as well if you feel generous. And the idea of these is the player can click on it and see what the effect is of having that talent. And
if I've done homebrew talents, which everyone is doing now, it's very popular on Discord.
Yep.
I can just add additional talents, right?
Yep. In the base system, this won't show up, but there is in the drop down you can add a talent. If I just quickly do one. So this has been a new talent. You could decide whether it's what type of talent, whether it's a general or specialised.
Yep.
And then you can put some description in there. And if I drag that talent across, it will come up. So yes, definitely you can create your own talents and put them in here, put the text in, and then the player can click on it and see what that talent does, rather than having to keep going back and looking at the rules.
Cool. All right, next item.
Next is journals. This is the bit that took me the most time. So in journals there are 3 tabs or two folders. The first one is the Alien RPG start set. Now, what this has got in it is journal entries for the art of Alien. I looked through the stuff and thought there is no way you can't have that fantastic art by Martin Cribb in some way that you can display to yourself, or as you know, you can show these to your players. So if you want to describe a scene, let's say alien nest, you can pull them up, do a show players and say that's what you've just walked into. So they're all in there. They are 1920 by 1080 resolution, which is the maximum I could get them up to with keeping them a reasonable size. But they are gorgeous.
Yeah, they're good. They're just amazing.
So that's what's in the starter set folder. Excuse me. There's the Chariot of the Gods scenario folder, and in here there is the scenario. These are the actual journal entries for the scenario. Player handouts. Now the idea of these is, if I get one up quickly, if you know in the scenario the players get access to the deck plans. So what you can do is at the appropriate moment in the scenario, you can just change the permission of this folder and configure the permission and give the players permission to see all of these. So it's got all of the deck layout in a manner that's not too big. They can work out what's there and roughly where they're going. So the idea is they can navigate around the world. And the last bit, and I've got to show this, is the art of Chariot of the Gods. So it's 3 of the pieces of artwork that are more relevant to Chariot of the Gods, and the first one is one of my personal favourites ever, which is the cover, the derelict off of the cover. An abomination and a lovely neomorph. And once again, you can describe these, hit the show players button and give them a little fright when they're nodding off. I'm a lazy person and I like things being in one place, so I've created 2 more journal entries. One of them is the starter set rules index. These are hot links to everything that's in that folder. So if I wanted to look at the section on your gear, I can flick that up. There are hypertext links to other sections. Unfortunately, as much as I'd like to do page references, so take you straight to something, I can't do that in Foundry. I can only direct you to direct a link to a journal. So where I'd like to say for radiation go to exactly this point, I can't actually do it yet. As soon as I can, it will. So there's that there. If I quickly showcase a couple of these, weapons and armour. So in weapons and armour, and basically these journal entries contain everything from the starter set rulebook. So in here you've got you've got the weapons tables, you've got a little picture if one was available, and a link. If you click on the link, it'll actually pull up the item from the compendium, so you could actually have a better look at it if you wanted.
Yeah, and it's also got the full. It's got the description that's in the compendium, doesn't it?
Yes, I mean basically everything you see. So this scope rifle, if I just put it there, what's there is actually in here. Yeah. So exactly what's in there. So each of the items, I've tried to reflect as much as I can what's in the book with the space available.
Yeah.
Lots of tables. I so hate doing tables in systems, but there you go. What else? Rolling dice. So how to roll the dice, what they mean, and this is geared towards what's in the book. So grab a handful of plastic things and throw them. Or not necessarily push a button on the screen. You know, these are the verbatim rules, which I've tried to do, and I've tried to put in a lot of the. I've actually put in all of the colour text, so the examples, the quotes that are in some of the earlier parts. You know, the story that leads you through the first chapter, the quote from Revelation, things like that. It seemed very stark not doing those.
So what about, you've split it up too though, so you've got the scenario index and the starter rule index, right?
Yep. Yes. So Chariot of the Gods is the second index, and basically it takes you through the scenario. So.
And why did you split them?
It's a good question, and one thing I forgot to mention. You may want to permission your players to actually see the rules, but you don't really want them to see the scenario. So once again, what you can do, I mean, you've got a couple of options. Obviously, if you don't like giving your players the rules, you can pull up a journal entry and then do a show to players. But if you want to give them some free agency to look through the rules, you just configure permissions and give all players observer, and then they can actually look at the rules if they want to or need to.
Yep.
Obviously, with the scenario, you don't want to do that.
No.
I've split them out, and once again here we've got the player character biogs are in here with links to the actual actor within the VTT. So that will call up Vanessa Miller, the actual actor or actress, I should say. Once again, there are links to various bits and pieces as they're needed. Similarly, with all the NPCs, I'm trying not to show too much of this or even read too much of it.
We've probably done enough actually, because
Yeah.
the NPC, you know, all you have to do, DMs, is click on a single button to change them from NPCs to PCs, and then you can hand them out to players.
Yes. The other thing that's in here are the
PC in as they proceed through the game, and you need to replace the character.
Yeah.
That never happened, just in case.
No, nobody ever dies in Alien.
No, it's very soft and gentle game.
The other thing I've put in here is I've split out the USS Cronus. And basically, so if they're on a deck, you've got the description of everything that's on that deck in there.
Yeah. All right.
Tables. So the other thing that comes with this is a bit of a background, is tables. So in Alien tables, in the system normally you get one table, which is the panic table. Within the starter set, you get the mental trauma, neurological distortation, can't even say it, critical injuries on xenomorphs, critical injuries on synthetics, critical injuries on PCs, which are all there. And then you've got the alien creature tables, which I showed you on the alien sheet. So when I clicked on the drop down, it was picking up one of these three tables to roll. Excuse me. To roll these, you can roll them here. But as I said, and you can hit that and it will roll. But as I said, I'm a lazy GM. So all you need to do is go import the macro roll on creature table or roll on selected mother table. and then you can call up the table you want to roll on. Let's do a critical injury on a xenomorph. It asks you how many times you want to roll. So how many is how many times you want to do it. You can add modifiers, so it'll add a number modifier, not a number of dice, and then draw. And then, as you can see down here, because I've got John Wilson clicked, it came up with his name, but it will actually show you the result from drawing off of that table. If I did a critical injury on a human, you can see here it's come up and he said he's got a broken arm, it's not fatal, there's no time limit, you can't use the arm, it's got a healing time of 3 days.
Now, currently we've got the crit table but that's for the beta, right?
Yes, I'm refactoring some of the tables to roll as D66 rather than D36. There's the difference. I think is a little bit semantic sometimes, but there are some tables that really have to be D66. So that's a small change I'm making. At the moment, this is rolling 1D36 rather than D66.
Exactly the same probability and result that you get on a D66, but
I spent 2 days Google fooing trying to find out the probabilities for rolling a D66 over a D36. Couldn't find it.
And what did you do? Yeah, there is no difference.
No, gave up in the end. So that's macro. That's really these macros. They're in the core system. The macros, obviously, the tables aren't. But if you put tables in there, they will show up in this drop down, as long as they're either in the mother. And these are explained in the notes.
Yeah, anyway. And this is the perfect moment to step into the compendiums because the compendiums got the macros.
Yes. So these are the compendiums. There are a few. First thing to note is, so for things like creatures, NPCs and PCs, they've got a little eyeball with a line through it. They are not visible to players. Only the GM can see these. The ones that are visible to players are armour. So this has got all of the armour from the role-playing the game in it. It's all set out. It's got the notes. It's got things like air supply. It's got any modifiers that particular piece of armour gives. So that particular one doesn't. I think we can personal armour.
The exosuit.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember one of them. There we go. So if you've got a Mark 35 pressure suit, it's a -1 agility, and these all factor into any agility rolls you do within the system. Once again, you can create your own items and build these things. But the other thing is, so the idea here is that if the player managed to lay his hands on a piece of a world survival suit, you just direct him towards the compendium, go to the armour, and he drags it over, drops it on his sheet. It appears in the inventory down here because it's inactive. And when he activates it, a few things happen. His encumbrance goes up whether it's active or not, but a few things happen on the general sheet. You notice his air supply goes up to 6 and his armour goes up to 4. Within the game system, I'm still doing some work around consumables because not all consumables are equal. Thomas and I were having a discussion about power the other day because power doesn't work the same way as air, food and water. But the idea is in the system that you've got 6 air, and if your GM says roll air supply, you click on the parachute. Oh, that was bad. And he rolled 6 dice, 3 of which turned up at facehuggers. His air supply, there's a message that says your air supply decreases, and it decreased to 3. And if we look on his inventory, I'm not displaying air supply anymore. I took it off. Armour, if he has to do an armour save, he just clicks on the armour button, and that's armour. Back to compendium. Equipment, once again, all of the equipment that's in the rules is in here. I'm still working on trying to get some decent icons for these things, but they're all in here. So for instance, and yet again, modifiers are all set up. So it gives a +2 mod to observation. If I go to modifiers, observation is a wit skill and it's got +2. So that if you have binoculars and you have them as active, it will actually include that in any observation rolls. And things like data transmitter cards, which don't actually do a lot, but it's good to give the players because they think they're happy. Things like motion trackers have got power. This was the thing that caused the debate between Thomas and myself.
Yes, you have the great power. You won't even go there. You have the great power.
I know. It's a nightmare I'm having regularly. That was equipment. Weapons. In the starter set, you get all of the weapons. Once again, as I say, I'm still working on trying to get reasonable icons for these, but once again, the player just goes into here, the GM's command, and drags it onto his character sheet, and then activates it, fires it once, and gets killed by an alien.
It's never happened before.
It's my experience. And if these don't have modifiers other than the ones that are on the base sheet, really.
And just one last question on the compendium. So, and you can also create stuff. You can set up your own compendium with your own player handout.
Yes.
All of those other things as well, can't you?
Yes, definitely. You can. I mean, it's part of the inbuilt system. You can set up your own folders in the various, like under journals, things like create your own journals, you create your own notes. You can create your own compendiums and put your own bits and pieces in there to store them and give the players access to them.
And all that's stored on your home system. So just a nutty question. So when you set up all of that independent stuff, it doesn't write to the phone, does it? Right? It's all just locally to your system.
Yes, I mean it writes to your world.
Yeah.
So not the modules. So there are two things here. You've got skill stunts here, which says Alien RPG. That's a system compendium. You've got the RPG starter set. That's a module compendium. And if I did create compendium, call it Fred for want of a better, that will show up under. Oh, it was an actor, wasn't it? You can see Fred is an actor, and it's in a world. So that's only in this world that's visible. So you're not overwriting anything. You can, of course, unlock any of these. If you do, it will overwrite them. You'll have to reinstall the module.
Yep. So don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Probably, probably the one of the biggest changes I've made recently, apart from getting all the modifiers working, was around agendas. So obviously, if you're playing a normal scenario, you've got a thing on the front of the character sheet which is your personal agenda. Excuse me. But if you're playing a cinematic type game, or even if you're playing a campaign and you want to give somebody an agenda for that particular scene, on the skills tab, I've created another bit which is driven by items and its agendas. Now, in the Chariot of the Gods, each player character has got an agenda for each scene. and they are all here. So the idea here is that if you're in scene 1, the GM will drag the scene, the agenda for that act onto the player's character sheet. The player can then just click on it. Sorry, I keep covering up Thomas's face. The player can then click on that in their character sheet, and they can see what their agenda is. When you get to Act 2, the GM comes along and finds Wilson's agenda. Oh, it's Act 1, and finds Wilson's agenda. Act 2, drags it on. The player now sees it, so that compendium is not visible to the players. It's only visible to the GM, but the GM can drag items onto here. I was quite pleased with this. So you can click on them and it will show you the agenda item. Yet again, context sensitive, delete. These are items that you can build for yourself. So if I go to items, the pop-up won't show, but if I do create item, one of the options on the pop-up is agenda, and I can create a new agenda item. I can create a new agenda item. Put some text in there, save it. I can give that to someone, and then it works exactly the same way as talents. So if you were writing your own cinematic or your own campaign and you wanted to include secret agenda items for your players, all you do is you create them, put them into a compendium, make the compendium not visible to the players, and then drag them onto the players as is needed. It's a pretty sneaky way of passing messages to the players, actually.
Yeah, it looks really neat. Okay, I think. Oh, and they're going to be a little bit differently formatted after the beta.
Yes, so these stunts are all rich text formatted.
Yep.
So that I can do clever things like that. At the moment, the field that holds this information is it won't let me. It's just a plain text field. So I've made a system change this morning, which I'll release during the week after I've done a bit of testing. That will make this a rich text field. If anyone uses Foundry, it actually becomes a micro editor field rather than a text field, and consequently you can do some snazzy formatting in there to make it look a bit prettier.
You can use dot pointing and other things to just give it a little bit better format.
You can use HTML. I mean, one of the nice things, slightly diverging, but one of the nice things about Foundry, if I grab a skill stunt, so this here is a little editor. If you click on it, this gives you a really nice little HTML editor, so that you can actually do some nice formatting. You can do headings and various things. So I've done that for skill stunts. Now I've also I will be next release. I'll have it for talents and agenda as well. So just adds a little bit more formatting and interest.
Okay. I'm running up against the end of our time, and everything that was on the list, I've just checked it. Everything's been covered. Is there anything else you'd like?
I don't think so. No, in honesty. Oh, other than the thank you for helping me do this and organise it.
No, it's going to be really fun. So just the last thing to mention is we're going to run through Chariot of the Gods using the beta. As we said at the beginning, what time was it again? 7:30 GMT, 7:30 PM GMT, or
yes, 7:30 PM GMT.
If if you prefer. And for those of you who are in Australia and on the eastern seaboard and not affected by daylight saving, that'll be 6:30 a.m. Because it's all of the variations of stupidity that we have in Australia. And that'll be tonight, UK. Hold on.
Tomorrow.
No, UK.
Sunday. Right. It's on Sunday in the UK at 7:30 in the evening.
And Monday morning at the time that the magpies get up in Australia. And we'll send out the links to all of that as well.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So,
all right.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And we'll hopefully see you on the live stream.
Yeah. All right. So